everyone, and welcome to another Piano with Larro. My name is Don Lawrence, and it's a pleasure having you on board for another lesson. Today we start out by looking at intervals, a very important building block in musical composition. An interval in music is a distance between two notes. So between C and the note D, we have an interval. Now there are several intervals, and we measure these by the number of half steps, whole steps, and of course their position in the scale. Now a half step, as we mentioned some time ago, is one semitone. So C to C sharp is a half step or a semitone. A whole step interval is two semitones. So that would be C to D would be a whole step interval or two semitones. Okay? Alright, so now we're getting somewhere with intervals. So we refer to an interval as melodic when they are sounded separately. Okay? So the interval is a melodic interval, let me repeat, when the notes are sounded separately. So for example, if we were to play the popular Bob Marley song One Love, One Heart using melodic intervals, it would sound like if we were to play the same song now using harmonic intervals, we would use chords. So it would sound like this. One love, one heart, let's get together and feel alright. So we have melodic intervals. Chords, harmonic intervals. Very important concept for you to grasp. Now we have what we call major intervals. Now the interval between the keynote or the tonic of a major scale and the second, third, sixth, or seventh degree of that scale is called a major interval. So for example, C to D is called a major second. C to E, a major third. C to A is a major sixth. C to B is a major seventh. Then we have minor intervals. When the interval between two notes of a major interval is decreased or lowered by a half step, they become minor intervals. So what do I mean? If C to E is a major interval, to get the minor interval, we simply lower this note by a half step, and this now becomes a C minor interval. So major is, minor is, good. Now that we know about major and minor intervals, let's look at two others. Let's look at the augmented intervals. When a major interval is increased by a half step, it becomes an augmented interval. So for example, C to G here is referred to as a perfect fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, perfect fifth. But if we increase the G or raise the pitch by a half step or a semitone, we then end up with C augmented interval. And the C augmented chord would look like So, on the other side, we can look at the diminished interval. A diminished interval is achieved when a minor interval is lowered by a half step. Okay? When a minor interval, in this case, let's look at the minor interval here is C to E flat. Okay? When this is lowered by a half step, we get a diminished interval. So here to here would be a diminished interval. Now, that's as much as we will treat with today as it relates to intervals, but as we go deeper and deeper into theory and practical, we'll learn more about intervals. Now let's look quickly at chords. Chords occur in different qualities. So we know that a 3-note chord is known as a triad. And there are 4 different types of triads that we will study. The major is where we'll start, and you will remember that we play the C major triad this way: C, E, G. Now let's learn the minor triad. The minor triad, what we will do is learn this simple formula for playing all of these triads. For the major chord, the simple formula to remember is this: start with the key note or the main note, then think 4 half steps up to find the second note. So we start counting from here: 1, 2, 3, 4. So this becomes our second note in the major chord, that is. And then we count 3 more half steps up for the third note in the chord. So we say 1, 2, 3. That's how we end up with our C, E, G. So the formula is the key note, 4 half steps up for the second note, another 3 half steps, and we find the third note, and we have our triad. That's your major chord formula. Now the formula for forming the minor triad is a 3-4. What do I mean? Start on the key note as usual, in this case the C. You want to form a C minor triad. Start on the C, then what do? We count 3 half steps from the C: 1, 2, 3, and that becomes D sharp or E flat. Then we count another 4 half steps up from E flat: 1, 2, 3, 4, and we end up at G. So then we have our C minor triad: C, E flat, G. So whereas the major triad is C, E, G, the minor is C, E flat, G. 2 different sounding chords. Now let's look at the diminished chord. The diminished chord is a 3-3 formula. Start on the key note, count 3 half steps up: 1, 2, 3. Count another 3 half steps up: 1, 2, 3, and we end up at F sharp here, and our C diminished chord is played like this: C, E flat, F sharp. So let's go over them. C, E, G, that's our major chord or triad. Or minor, we lower this one, the third, and that's become our C minor triad. For the diminished chord, we also lower the 5th degree of the scale and we get this as our C diminished chord. So the formula again for diminished, keynote 3 to 3. For minor, keynote 3 to 4, and we're talking about half steps. Now for the augmented chords now. Start again on the C, and we're finding now the C augmented chord. The formula is 4 to 4, so it means it's 4 half steps first. 1, 2, 3, 4, and another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that now becomes our C augmented chord. Technically speaking, it's called an augmented fifth, but that's our C augmented chord. So we know how to construct our major, or minor, or diminished, and our augmented chords. When we meet next time, we'll look at how we use these chords and how we can extend and these chords to make them more interesting. But these are the basics, and we have to learn the basics before we can progress further in learning to play by ear. So I hope you learned something from today's lesson, and I trust that you'll come again. And just in case you received something from this lesson, please subscribe and share with your friends and family. I look forward to seeing you again. God bless.